Hi, it's me, obviously, Kara. Um, I wanted to make a video because I feel like it's really hard to um, kind of explain things over email or text or anything because it's hard to get across what you actually mean because you can't hear a person's inflections and things like that. And you can kind of get the wrong idea about what someone means or what they're trying to say. Um, but I kind of just wanted to discuss some things because I feel like a lot of people in the family don't quite understand what's going on because they don't really understand bipolar depression or mental illness all that well. And me having grown up with both of those things, I'd like to think that I have some authority to kind of talk about it because my life has been such a whirlwind. But I wanted to make a video because I didn't want anyone to think that I was coming off as trying to be disrespectful or condescending or anything like that because I really don't like to be that way. I try very hard to be kind in my explanations of things and just try to help people understand because it's always better when people truly understand something. Basically, mental illness, specifically depression, has a lot of stigmas around it and what it actually is. A lot of people think that bipolar depression, or really any mental illness, is just when a person, kind of has bouts of something, like they were sad for a long time and weren't really functioning as best as a person could, and that qualifies as having a depressive disorder or something along those lines. And then they got better, and then, sometimes they kind of lapse in and out, and that's really all it is. But I wanted to talk about how severe it actually is, because I feel like a lot of people in the family don't really understand. Again, I'm kind of reiterating what I already said, but I don't think that they really understand really how severe mental illness is, and this has to do with a lot of things. It certainly has to do with the beliefs that the family, you guys and everyone else kind of share collectively. Definitely has something to do with that stigma around it, that it's something that can be cured different ways. But I'll just start out, when I was little, I have two parents that both have severe mental illnesses, and I'm not talking about, an environmental depression that can be changed by exercise or a little bit more sunlight. I'm talking about my mother hearing voices and telling me that she saw the devil in the curtains, telling me that people were out to get her, that people were out to get me because they were out to get her and they wanted to hurt her because by getting me, that people were watching her constantly and talking badly about her. When obviously, at the, tender age of, 4, obviously I even knew that something was wrong with my mother. I remember her screaming at things that weren't there. And just generally being completely abnormal. Her moving from place to place because she thought people in the neighborhood were out to get her when really nobody cared that she was even there. Like you would most of your neighbors. You don't, like, oh, hey, whatever, hi. But you don't really, they're just your neighbors. But she thought that everyone was out to get her. which is ridiculous. And I also grew up with my dad, who has severe bipolar depression. I think back when he was diagnosed, it was called manic depression because that's kind of like the antiquated psychiatric term for it. I think if you would look in the DSM-5, it would probably be updated to bipolar and not manic anymore. But I grew up with that, and my life was not easy as a child. In fact, most of the things that I went through were things that I shouldn't have had to see or deal with. And back then you don't realize, I mean, I knew things were bad. It's pretty obvious. My dad I was mostly aware of the manic symptoms because bipolar depression is when you go from an extreme low, say not getting out of bed for an entire week. I mean, like literally not getting out of bed for an entire week. Maybe you just get up to pee or use the bathroom and then you literally go back to your bed, to extreme highs. And I remember those most of all, where he would get these grandiose ideas that were terrifying for me as a child to kind of witness, because I was kind of the victim of those in a way, because I felt like I was living under this dictator, because that's kind of how he saw himself, was this great, person in this house. Word for word was his palace, and this was God's palace, and no, you won't watch that because I said so, and I am the ruler of this palace. Those are, real words that would come out of, his mouth. Things like that. That's not normal for people. And just recently, I mean, all of you know, he's been in and out of the hospital quite a bit. Not so much, there's really not been any mania, just severe depression. And I'm glad that we got him psychiatric help, because if we hadn't, he would probably be dead within about the next 2 months, just from not keeping up with his physical health at all. Because like I said, he was not getting out of bed for days on end. And with that, there's kind of this stigma around depression and mental illness that, you're just depressed. If you start jogging, it should reverse itself completely, or something like that. But the thing is real mental disorders are the equivalent of a non-curable physical ailment. What my dad has is bipolar depression, and it is terminal. And a lot of people treat mental illnesses as being something that, you can just come out of it if you start being proactive in your life and take initiative. Those things work for people who actually don't have mental illnesses. Those kind of things work for people who are having a bout of depression, because their husband divorced them, or they can't pay the mortgage on their house anymore, or they're bankrupt. Like that's not depression. You can be depressed and not have a depressive disorder. You can be anxious and not have an anxiety disorder. You can be extremely neat and not have obsessive compulsive disorder. And that's where a lot of people go wrong, is they mistake commonplace sadness for a severe mental illness that's kind of like the cancer of the brain. What happens with my dad is his brain, to a severe extent, cannot really produce serotonin at all, or it produces way too much. And like I said, my life is a living testament of that. I mean, there are things about my childhood due to the issues that my dad has that I won't talk about with my psychiatrist even, because it's not her business. But, you know, stuff like that. And I've had friends who have depression. Depression is when you want to hang yourself from the pipes in the basement. Depression is cutting your wrists up until you see fat. Depression is taking a whole bottle of pills and having your stomach pumped. Depression is terrible. And it's kind of hard to explain because I feel like a lot of people don't get it. And there's also this stigma around mental health medications that for some reason that's unbeknownst to me, I don't really get it. People think that you should stay away from mental health medications at all costs, that they all dope you up, and that they all get you high on life, basically high, and that you shouldn't take them to have to deal with your problems and things like that, which is completely false. If my doctor hadn't put me on Prozac, not a lot of you know, but I was clinically diagnosed with obsessive compulsive disorder, and that can be due to environmental factors, the way that I was raised, the things that I was taught to believe constantly had me in this cycle of perfection, trying to be perfect, trying to be perfect, trying to be perfect, trying to be, and it really messed a lot of things up. And I had these when I was a child, and I was never taken to a doctor at all. I was basically just told the most useless stuff ever, and then I would be cured. Sorry. But without Prozac, I would be dead. About 3 years ago, I made several suicide attempts. Overdosing, strangling, things like that. And I'd like to say now that I am far better than I was, because at the time, it was a real, it was a circus, to say the least. But there's no reason to think that psychiatric medications are bad, or useless, or bad for you. What's bad for a person is depression and bipolar depression and not getting treatment. And again, bipolar depression isn't what I feel like a lot of people, especially in this family, really think that it is. I know Grandma understands, because she saw it even probably before I was born. She knows just how bad it can get. For heaven's sake, she worked in a hospital. She understands mental disorders. And when I finally, figured out that I had obsessive compulsive disorder, she was supportive of me. And she understood, and she realized that, now that we have a diagnosis for this, you can get help. And push me to see a doctor and things like that. But psychiatric medications aren't bad. They're not bad. Now, if you don't take care of yourself in the least with your diet and stuff, that can ruin you. My dad was on lithium for a while, and there are tons of people on lithium who have had absolutely no problems with it at all. But my dad just he doesn't really take care of himself. So his liver he's gone into renal failure twice. And it is partially because of the lithium, because if you know about lithium, the therapeutic level of lithium is so close to the toxicity level that that's kind of why you can go into lithium toxicity really fast. And he was in lithium toxicity so much that he started to go into renal failure. But he was also on lithium because if you're on lithium, you have a terminal mental illness, because lithium isn't something they mess around with. It's not something they give everybody, because half of everybody that goes into Stairways or Safe Harbor or any of these places is faking it, or just wants, a good anti-anxiety medication to get them loopy, because those are really the only medications that are going to get you loopy that are psychiatric, other than that ADHD medications. But yeah, I kind of wanted just to sort of explain so people understand the severity. And we both appreciate your guys' prayers and your help and, your support. We really do. We love you guys, your family. But I just really felt the need to specify, because I really don't think anyone in the family really understands mental illness all that well, because most of the Minnick family does live comfortably, and doesn't have those problems. And what my dad has is not environmental. It's not, bouts of depression here and there. What my dad has clung to his back for over 20 years, and it's not going away. It's not going to. Medicine has probably saved his life more times than I can count. Medicine has definitely saved my life, because you would have all attended my funeral quite a while ago if I hadn't gone to see a psychiatrist or seeked help for the things that I deal with. I would have been long gone. But homeopathic medicine, it just kind of makes me smile, because the majority of people who really think that that's going to work are people who watch Dr. Oz and really have a really vague idea of what mental illness is, because they don't realize how scary it is. Mental illness is banging your head off a wall so hard that you get a concussion. Depression is slicing so far into your wrist that you start to see fat. White, disgusting fat. Mental illness is considering hanging yourself from the basement pipes. Obsessive compulsive disorder is standing in a hallway, flicking a light off and on, 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 for an hour straight, because even though you can see it going off, you don't really believe that it's off. Anxiety is rolling around on the floor screaming for a higher power to come down and snap your neck. And homeopathic medicines aren't going to do anything in this case. I'm sure a lot of what I've said has been alarming or scary or maybe even offensive because no one likes to picture those things. They find them repulsive, but that's also the reason why we have such a vague, stigmatized view of mental illness, is because no one wants to look at how bad and disgusting and bloody it really is. And I wanted to just share because I don't think people are getting it at all. Turmeric will work for people who have bouts of sadness or environmental depression, but it's not going to work for someone who was rushed into the ER shaking like he had a seizure, crying hysterically, having a panic attack because he wanted to put himself in front of a car and smash his brains in. It's just not. What's going to help him are the doctors who went to school for years and years and years and years and years and years to be able to treat things like this. Because if we didn't have these medicines in place, a lot of people would be dead. But I didn't want to come off as condescending or mean or disrespectful, because that's not who I am as a person. And I don't want to behave that way because I don't want you guys or anyone else to think that I'm just rude, or I don't care about what you said, because I do, and I care about your concern and the things that you said. You know, you said those things because you care, and you gave me advice because you care, and that's what matters. Is that I have such a supportive family, and we love you all. I love you all dearly, but I needed to paint a picture, because no one knows how truly gory, real, clinical depression is unless you've lived it. Unless you've seen it. And I have. And it is monstrous. It's monstrous. It's actual blood and tears. And actually sometimes hoping that you'll accidentally step out in front of a moving vehicle. It's terrible. And no amount of, Indian spice is going to change the monster that it is, or else it wouldn't really be a monster and I'd be making all of this up. But I'm not. This is real. But that's really all I had to say. You can email me your comments and concerns, commentary, anything. It's okay. video platform is, for me, it's better than typing, because you can't really get a point across too much in words. And you can't really have a conversation with someone without being interrupted. And I just needed people to hear me out. But again, we love you guys. Dad loves you guys. Thank you so much for everything, for your support, for your prayers, everything like that. You guys are amazing. But with that, I gotta go to work. So, have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful week. Yeah, hopefully I'll be able to talk to you guys soon. Bye, guys.